They're just a lot further off from being good, way further away from Georgia. That was about the Florida Gators from an SEC assistant coach. Uh, ESPN quoting them anonymously, which is often how times how people really open up. This is an article or posted earlier this year. Here's part of what it says too. It says the Gamecocks must visit both Georgia and Tennessee and lose standout cornerback Cam Smith as well as several other contributors to the portal. Coaches say that the Gators will need at least another year to position themselves to contend in the SEC East, especially with questions at quarterback and no bona fide starter, no bona fide star on defense, no starter at quarterback either. It's really a challenging time at Florida right now when you compare them to what's been going on at Georgia. I mean, this has been an exceptional run. If you've not seen Double Dogs yet, you can pick that up today. The link is down below. It's an 80-page look at the 80-page hardcover look at the season, including the game with Florida, which, if you remember, in Jacksonville this past, what was that, like 5 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, 3.5, 4 months ago. Florida really was getting blown out in that game. They fought back, which is the same way that we're against Tennessee as well. They had a very good comeback in both of those games, but man, it was just rough. I'm looking over the book now. I'm waiting. By the way, UPS, get your shit in gear, man. Like when people are gonna complain to me about the book not getting to them as quick as they wanted, our friends at UPS, they got to do a better job. You know, do a better job, UPS, United Parcel Services, very specifically. I'm talking to you. Do a better job. Um, I'm not trying to get delayed by days because y'all can't get your act together. But anyway, I was, looking over some stuff and there was a problem week 3 with Florida. You knew there was a real problem because week 1, if you recall, they beat Utah at home. And then they lost to Kentucky. Not a surprise to me. Not a surprise, generally speaking, I don't think. That was not a shock. Beating Utah was a surprise. But man, when I came home from the South Carolina game, went home that day. It was easy. I got home in time to watch the Gators play South Florida. And that was bad. Okay. That was a bad performance by the Gators. And it just showed it's like, how are they this bad? South Florida's like one and whatever. I mean, it's just not good. And it didn't get any better. Now, excuse me. Now, as time goes on here, the real issue for Florida moving forward, they don't have what you need at quarterback specifically. And what they thought they had coming in, it's not working. So that guy left. The NIL deal, which was crazy to begin with, fell apart. Just too many problems, generally speaking, at Florida right now. And it's something that Billy Napier is going to have to figure out. I don't know. I'm not getting paid $6-8 million a year to figure these problems out. Excuse me. It's a real train wreck right now at Florida, and that's kind of the point of the off the record SEC assistant. Now, I don't think this is the same person that I would talk to about the Gators, same people, uh, but the sentiment is the same amongst the folks that I talk to that are assistants in the league, which is Florida's got some problems, got some real problems. By the way, my problem tonight, figuring out what to eat, I'm going to go with pizza, which means I'm going to go with Doordash. That's right. Now I got to read this, but I'm going to talk to it for a limited time. The reader or listeners can get 50% off $20 value, $0 in delivery fees when you download the Doordash app. The code DAWG, DAWG, that's 50% off, $20 value, $0 in delivery fees when you order the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter the code DAWG, DAWG for 50% off, $20 value, and $0 in delivery fees from DoorDash, subject to change. Terms apply. It's a limited time offer. It's not going to be here soon, so take advantage of it while you can. And I'm not talking about I got no hate for the traditional big box pizza folks. People really, beer snobs, pizza snobs, whiskey snobs, bourbon snobs. Yeah, y'all got to chill out. Food is good. If it's good, it's good. And if you don't like it, okay, fine. But like, I'm not going to go with a big box tonight. It's going to be something a little more local, a little more unique to Athens. I'm not going to name the place. They they could be sponsors of Dog Post in the future. I'm not sure it's a great fit, but um, I'm going with pizza tonight, and I'm going to go through DoorDash. Back to the Gators. This only gets better with recruiting, and that's kind of the problem right now. Is it only gets better with recruiting, and that's a real problem at Florida right now. Not just because of losing the quarterback that you kind of couldn't figure out how to lasso in with that NIL deal. The NIL deal was completely nuts to begin with. I don't think people understand. So just as an aside, we get pitched things a lot, or at least I do. I can only speak for myself, and we get pitched a lot. And the numbers that are kind of out there for people, they are not based in reality. These numbers I'm seeing, they're not based in reality. I don't know where some of these folks are coming up with this stuff. It's not real. But for instance, a season ago, if you're looking at the Gators in terms of where they ranked in the league, uh, it's not good enough. It's not horrible, but they ranked 14th last year, this past cycle, in consensus recruiting rankings. And, that's behind Alabama, Georgia, well, and in the near future, Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Tennessee, almost half the league. They're behind. They're behind six people, one of which we know they will play every year in Georgia. And my suspicion is they're either going to keep LSU or they're going to get Oklahoma. So probably two of those teams that the Gators are not just behind, but are what I would call significantly behind. And that's problematic. And if this is a matter of, Billy Napier has a year to fix it or something, he's not gonna. It's not a 1 year fix situation at Florida. Um, you cannot compare the situation that Kirby walked into with the situation that Billy Napier walked into. Billy took over a program that, I mean, I guess Georgia had fired its last two coaches, but that was one of them was fired in the year 2000. So it was a stable program. It was a winning program. And Billy Napier took over a program that had a losing season the year before. Georgia was 10-3 when Kirby took it over, and then he had a bad year at 8-5. 8-5 would have been great for Florida this past year. I mean, it is. This is probably a discussion for another time, but I will say this. I'm starting to wonder out loud how great a job Florida is. And what I mean by that is two people there have really won in their entire time of the 100 or so years that Florida's been in existence as a football program. Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer, and they've combined for 3 national championships. And you don't want to dismiss it like the Gators have done nothing. That's not true. But if we look back at the history of Florida Gators, um, outside of outside of those two, it's not unbelievable. I mean, those two take up a fair amount of time in the Florida world, but it's not been unreal. All right, and here's my point. I think everyone knows Florida's history um before this before the divisions of the SEC. I don't know what modern SEC is anymore. I'm afraid it's starting to mean 1992 and beyond, but it could soon mean 2012 and beyond. But Florida, just looking very, very quickly here, Florida had never won 10 games, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, before Steve Spurrier got there. Okay. Now, they had some good years with Charlie Pell, but those were 9-win teams because they were on probation and, all this stuff. So they'd never really been great before Spurrier got there. And then he hit everybody with this. He went 9-2, 10-2, 9-4. 9-4 was his worst year. He went 9-4, 11-2, 10-2, 12-1, 12-1 national championship, 10-2, 10-2, 9-4, 10-3, 10-2, and then he checked out. But in that time, he won the Sugar Bowl twice, the Orange Bowl twice. So Steve really did a good job of winning big. I mean, I think he did a good job winning big games, and the Gators were superb during that time. Then they hired Ron Zook, 8-5, 8-5, 7-5, and then Urban comes in, 9-3, 13-1 national championship, 9-4, 13-1 national championship, 13-1, and then 8-5. So even Urban was very up and down, if we're being, honest about it. And then here comes Will, 7-6, 11-2, 4-8, 7-5. That's it. Jim McElwain, 10-4, 9-4, 4-7, fired. Dan Mullen, 10-3, 11-2, then 8-4, 6-7. Now listen, I've said this a lot about Dan Mullen. I think it was a disaster. It had become a disaster, but I think they may have gone a little fast there. I mean, like, the guy had 3 pretty good seasons out of 4 at Florida, and it wasn't so hot for a while there. But when you look at, coaches not named Spurrier and Meyer at Florida, the only one who's really made a good run at it was Dan Mullen, and he had 2 10-win seasons out of 4. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I think sometimes, Steve Spurrier didn't just do it at Florida. He did it at Carolina. Okay, South Carolina is as hard a place to win in this league as there is. That's not Mississippi State or Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt. I mean, I could go on for a long time about that. But you know, Florida should be what it was during Spurrier and during Urban. That's really what they should be. If we're being completely intellectually honest, that's what they should be. But they're not. They're not. And when you compare, Georgia's 20-year run with Florida's, I mean, from 2000 on, Georgia has been way more consistent. Again, and this is 2000 on. So 8-4, 8-4, 13-1, 11-3, 10-2, 10-3, 9-4, 11-2, 10-3, 8-5, 6-7, 10-4, 12-2, 8-5, 10-3, 10-3, 8-5, 13-2, 11-3, 12-2, 8-2, 14-1, 15-0. I mean, as much torture as Georgia's gone through with the Gators, Georgia's had a better century. Period. I mean, I would almost say it's not close. I'd have to go back and kind of investigate that a little bit. I'm not sure if I'd say it's not close, but you know, this Florida should never be as far behind as they are now. Like this quote says, they're just a lot further off from being good, way further away from Georgia. Talking about comparing them to South Carolina and Tennessee. South Carolina and Tennessee, if last year is the barometer, if these moments are our barometer, they're not really that close, generally speaking. The Gators may be further away, but neither of them are super close. Probably Tennessee is the closest of the group. That's what I would say. But they got some issues to handle too. But, Florida can't be the 4th best team in the East. In the traditional East, they cannot be the 4th best team. That's total failure.